the next place we're going to talk about is Jordan's hometown.
Moses Lake.
Yeah, give it a shout out. So, and we're talking a little bit more about like the state in general, not just Moses Lake. We focus on Moses Lake a lot, but that's why it just says Washington out there at the bottom. So it's Washington State, not Washington, D.C. People get confused sometimes. But here's Washington State. That's what it looks like. All the way in the very tippy top left corner of the United States. As far away as you can go. So Moses Lake is over here, kind of in the middle of the state. You can kind of see these are big mountain ranges. Seattle is a really big city, and it's over here. Let's see what else we can figure out. So a cool thing about Washington is that there are so many diverse like climates and biomes and things happening. So the mountain range is kind of the factor for that. But you'll notice this is a precipitation map, and you'll notice that the range is so big. So some places in the state get 5 inches or less a year. That's insane. That's like one good rainstorm at the most. And some places get 180 to 200 inches of rain a year. That blows my mind.
That's called a rainforest.
Yes. And there actually is a rainforest in Washington. Insane. But there's also a desert. This brown stuff is what's considered the desert. And if you notice right here, this little guy is Moses Lake. So Moses Lake is in the desert. Not much unlike Las Vegas. But over here, on the other side of the mountains, the water and the rain, what they do is they come in from the ocean or they come down from the north, but they get like stuck at the mountains. So they just kind of stay over here. And then these guys up in the top of the mountains, they get tons of snow. And over here, they just get tons of rain from all that ocean water. But over here, the water stops and it just doesn't get to these guys. So this is where you can find the rainforest, these dark blue patches over here. So just for reference too, we looked it up. North Carolina gets 46 inches of rainfall a year. So that would be kind of this like green patches. Totally crazy.
Light green.
Totally crazy. But that's how many times more than Moses Lake, this orange section. It's a lot. All right. In this slide, you can see the geographical regions of Washington. So kind of like North Carolina has the coast and the Piedmont and the mountains and all of those areas. Washington has a little bit more because of the mountains. The mountains are kind of what shape the climate and the water sources. Water and mountains go hand in hand. So this part here, these are called the Cascade Mountains. They go right through the middle of the state and down. Over here, Puget Sound, like I said, that's where Seattle is. Olympic Mountains and the hills over here. This is where you get all the rain and the rainforest. There's Rocky Mountains at the top that separate Washington from Canada. And then there's even another set of mountains over here, the Blue Mountains. So kind of like Las Vegas sits in the bottom of a bowl. The Columbia Basin is kind of like that's what used for a sink basin. It sits at the bottom of kind of a bowl of mountains. So kind of going back to the rainforest thing, which still blows my mind, is the fact that there is one. So here's Seattle, and this little island over here is a rainforest. Crazy. But do you think does it look like the Amazon?
It's not really an island, but it's a giant mountain area.
Well, okay, yeah, but all of these guys are islands. This is what it looks like over there. This is a picture from the rainforest on that peninsula.
And that's where they're getting like 200 inches of rain a year. Like, that's 5 times as much as North Carolina does in the Raleigh area. It's crazy.
Yeah. And because it's not like the same climate weather-wise as like the Amazon and stuff, they have different kind of plants. Even though it's the same thing as a rainforest, it doesn't look the same. They get a lot more moss and just like stuff that can grow in cold, damp weather. There's a difference between cold damp and hot damp. The hot damp is what you guys have in North Carolina, where it gets humid and sticky and yucky. But this is like chilly, but also super wet
Miserable.
all the time. Yeah. So I just think this is beautiful. It blows my mind that this is over here on the west side of the mountains in Washington. And then we're going to pop over the mountains to Moses Lake. And this is what we got. How did that even happen?
Yay, sagebrush.
Do you see green anywhere in this picture? I don't see green anywhere in this picture. Maybe these little patches. Yeah, I remember we learned about sagebrush. That's what it is, sagebrush. These will dry out and roll down the road, and I will be amazed. So, this is Moses Lake, Washington. We made it. Here is a little screenshot of what the town looks like for you, an aerial view. So I've got some dots, some places we're going to talk about. Jordan's parents live on the lake. Pretty nifty. So we get a lot of really cool perks. We get to play a lot. You know, when you go to the lake, you like to go boating and stuff. So we like to do that a lot. So they're over here in the yellow and green dots. We're going to talk about a farm down here at the red dot, and then another cool recreational thing down here at the red dot, the sand dunes. So let's go. This is Jordan's parents' backyard. Super pretty. We've got a fun water slide. We love to use that guy. And just the views, right? Really cool. And also, check out those sweet rain clouds, right? The thing that blows my mind again about the West Coast is I can see all the way across that lake. All the way across the lake is a mile. 1 whole mile. And I can see that it's raining over there and kind of see that the water's coming down, but it's not raining where we are. But I can see all that way. So like I said, we like to boat. We like to have fun. These pictures are from when my mom and the kids came out to visit us in Washington. So here's the house, and we're just pulling away, gonna go tubing. Yep, there's little Sarah and Alexa, if you guys know them. And then we drove down here, that's where my pink dot was, the sand dunes. And we just pulled up the boat on the side and got to go build in the sand and have fun. On the other side of this, up the hill a little bit ways, there's a big area of sand dunes. Jordan's been there more than I have, though, so.
It's pretty sandy.
Yeah. It's interesting that all of a sudden there's just all these big sandy hills.
And then it goes back to desert. Like you think of desert in Egypt, like all of a sudden there's just a big pile of sand.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Just like a random beach that popped out of nowhere. But that's just what the land's like there. It's pretty rocky and sandy kind of all over. So it's still amazing to me that they can grow so many crops. They have such good farm. So again, wakeboarding, that's a big hobby of ours. Another really cool thing is that in the winter, and because it's in the north, Washington is, it freezes. That whole lake freezes over a whole mile across, and we can go out there. We walk around on it. We go ice skating. This is us taking Emmy out there. Freaks Mrs. Stokes out real bad. She does not like it. What if you fall through? But I'm telling you, that ice is, this is the minimum thickness.
It's at least 2 or 3 feet thick. So.
Yeah. Way cool,
like
though.
You could drive a truck on there and it would be okay.
Yeah, some people do. Some people I've seen them. They drive their truck out there and they dig a hole. And some years it actually doesn't freeze over quite that sturdy and thick. There has been a year or two where it hasn't froze up enough for us to really go out there. But most years it does, I would say, on the whole.
Oh, look, there's me again.
Oh, hey. Okay, so we're going to move on now to farming. This is another big use for water in the West Coast in general, kind of the middle of the country, but especially Washington, especially that middle part, the Columbia Basin. They're big farming cities.
We got lots of farms.
Lots. It's insane. Mrs. Stokes lost it. When she got off the plane and stepped outside, she was like, it smells like cows everywhere, all the time. It kind of does. But you get used to it, I promise. So this is, Jordan's friends own a dairy farm. Their family does. Huge, huge, huge dairy farm. 10,000 cattle, cows at least. But we were just checking out the babies here in rows. I want to say there were 60 babies at a time, in this one section. So this baby's sucking on Jordan's fingers. They think it's a bottle. It's funny. We also went in and toured the milking facility. It was pretty cool. I didn't take pictures of that part, though. But this one was cute, I think. And then these cows over here, the black ones, are just across the street from Jordan's parents. Some people just grow cows. That's what you're kind of doing. Some people just raise cows as beef cows, and then they'll sell them or slaughter them and eat them themselves. It's kind of...
That's just in someone's backyard, just walking down the street.
Yeah, they have a little mini farm. They have a little pasture. You can't see it. It's right over here where they grow wheat that they kind of just feed to the cows. Hay, alfalfa.
Alfalfa. They don't eat wheat.
This is true. Fun fact. I did not know this. Hay before.
You don't feed them wheat.
Jordan taught me. Hay is what you call the stuff that's brown and on the ground and already dried out. But alfalfa is what it's called when it's growing in the ground. And it's green and fuzzy and weird looking.
Same plant, just different names when you cut it.
Crazy.
Once you cut it, it turns into hay. Yep. If it's still growing, it's alfalfa.
So now you're a smart farmer too. So here is another thing of cows. I drove past this one time. Smells so bad. Don't open your window. But we looked at it out the window. So here's an aerial shot of just one of the little pens of cows. So this is called El Oro.
Right now is when you would pause the video and try to count how many cows are here in this little section.
Yeah, just give us a guess. There's lots. We tried one time. I think we got to 100 or 2, right?
I don't know.
Pretty high. So this is just one of their pens of cows. So El Oro is a beef cattle farm. They raise cows to sell them, make you some hamburgers.
Probably to McDonald's.
Probably. A lot of people in the Columbia Basin sell their product to McDonald's. Fun fact. So here you zoom out, and this is the whole cattle farm. We showed you a zoomed in section of this one pen of cows. Every other square on this picture has at least as many cows as were in that square. All these little brown sections that you think might be dots or ants?
Hey, that's just more like wet dirt, right? No, those are cows.
Those are cows. So many cows. I can't even remember the estimate, but it had to be like 100,000 or
at least
more.
a bajillion.
It was insane. So what I would say is we're not going to show it here, but there's a really, really awesome video that they put out. It's on the Washington Beef Commission's website. It's just 2 or 3 minutes. It's from the guy who runs this farm, and he kind of tells us some of the things that they do to help keep their cows going, how they feed them, and things like that.
And did you know that cows like tater tots and French fries?
Really cool. He tells you about that. Go check it out. We'll link it in the description at the bottom. It was interesting. I really liked it. Another thing we want to talk about here is, again, we're focusing on water, right? Kind of loosely. But we want to talk about the different ways that they water their crops on all the farms. So you notice they didn't get a lot of rainfall. Rainfall is not watering the crops. So they've got to get the water to the field somehow. And this is one of the ways they do it.
There's a couple different methods to do it. These type of sprinklers are called wheel lines, because notice they got big wheels. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, like once a day, someone's got to go out there and turn the wheel so you can move the sprinkler to the next section of farm that you want to water. Some of them nowadays have motors. You motorize them. You just start the motor and run it a little bit yourself. But that's one
section. This too, I would note that this is usually only used on smaller farms. Like this is only
like medium-sized farms.
Yeah, like 10 acres or so. I know that seems like a big number, but these farms can get ridiculously big. So this is kind of a small farming method.
And it depends on what crops you're growing too. These ones are called hand lines or siphon tubes, where you just have a little canal going around the farm, and you just siphon out the water. You get the siphons going, you drop it down in a little ditch, and then it just kind of runs downhill throughout the rest of the farm. I think they're growing potatoes here in this field. And then this type of sprinkler is called a circle, or I just call it circle. I think it's technically called a central pivot circle, but you just have a middle point that the wheels do a circle around, and they just got giant sprinklers. And this is how you water the very, very large fields.
Yeah. Like, water comes up through here, goes up, and then down that big long pipe.
And I'm going to say fields with circles as their sprinkler source are usually about 50 to 100, 150 acres worth of farm all at one time. So they need a bigger sprinkler. So like these tires are probably like 3 feet tall, big old huge sprinkler systems to water these big fields that they need to grow their crops, or grow alfalfa so they can feed the cows and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and you can kind of see there's like sections where the wheels are, and you can like add sections on if your field is bigger and take them off if they're smaller. They're not like a one size fit all kind of situation. So here's another one. Picture the same thing. Here's Guy now in his potato field. That's what these are.
Yep. And you can see the sprinklers hanging down from the big pipe. And they just, they just slowly circle around the field. Mm-hmm. It's pretty dang exciting.
So Jordan grew up here, so he's got friends. Some of them do farm. That's what they do. So down here at this red dot is one of his friends' farms. Mm-hmm. They're the bakers, and they grow potatoes. Yep. I think that's ironic.
Lots of potatoes.
Lots of potatoes. So many potatoes. And the other thing, kind of across the street right over here, is a potato processing plant. Yep. Who do they sell their potatoes to?
They sell their potatoes to Simplot processing plant, and Simplot makes them into various potato deliciousness.
Yeah, but most specifically, they make McDonald's French fries. That's all we care about.
Most of their potatoes turn into French fries.
Yeah, they also make tater tots and like those, like the McDonald's little breakfast hash brown situations and stuff like that. But McDonald's French fries, man, made right here.
And if you go a little bit south, is the Chick-fil-A potato factory. So
yeah. It's crazy because
it's kind of a big deal in the potato world.
It smells like sunflower oil down there because that's what they cook theirs with. Yeah. Different companies use different things. Way cool. I love French fries. Okay, so this is a picture of the baker's farm. The potato processing plant is like just off to the side there. You can't see it, but this is one of their circles. So you can kind of see with the truck over here the size of this circle, like for scale. That's a car. That's a car. It's insane to me how big this circle is, and you haven't even seen a quarter of it here.
Yeah, and this circle is probably getting close to 100 acres worth of farm. So, like these black dots over here are cows.
True, and you can kind of see here's a pivot. Like this person just has half a little circle here on their own personal land. But this is what the landscape looks like in Moses Lake as well. When you're driving down the highway, I mean you're on a lower vantage point, obviously, but it's just kind of flat. There's a few rolling hills out in the distance. Farms everywhere, all over.
And if you notice where you don't water, it's that brown sagebrush. But where
brown,
you do water,
green.
the soil is really fertile.
Yeah.
It has lots of nutrients and stuff. So if you do get water to it, it grows awesome. But if there's no water, you got weeds.
You got nothing. Like same thing right here. You can kind of see it really good. Like there's the corner of the circle and the brown corner, and that's the same thing that's going on here. That's where the water stops on that line. So we're gonna link a video here too. It's just 2 minutes. They were selling their property, and so they got a really cool drone to kind of come and show the land, and it's just really cool kind of see the layout of everything.
The scale, gets pretty
Yes.
ginormous.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine how big.
And
these
if you
things were.
notice, remember in the Las Vegas section, we were joking about trees. Like, this is why I don't really like trees. Like, there are no trees.
Yeah, no trees.
I like to be able to see as far as I can
yeah, these
with no
people
trees.
just
Thanks.
built some trees around their house so the wind wouldn't knock them over, So here are some more crops again. When I'm driving around out there, it's all kind of newish to me. So I take pictures out the window, and Jordan's family all laughs at me. I'm like, dude, why are you taking a picture of the stinking wheat? But I think the stinking wheat is really pretty and really cool. Now it comes in handy. So these are some wheat farms out. They're not in Moses Lake. They're in Royal City, but really close.
Pretty close.
Super cool. Blows my mind, man. Another place that grows really cool things, again, Moses Lake is right here, is Wenatchee, Washington. About a 45-minute drive from Moses Lake. You notice you're getting closer to the mountains, but probably starting here in Quincy and then up, tons of apples. The products that they're growing, the produce changes depend on the climate, obviously. So down here is really good for potatoes and wheat and beans and corn and stuff like that. But when you get up here, it gets a little bit more hilly and mountainous and cold, and so apples and cherries and peaches and stuff like that kind of get a little bit more prevalent. Again, picture out the window, not the best quality, but just there you go, pink lines of trees. And I can tell you these trees went all the way back to those mountains out there in the distance. Thousands of trees growing cherries. Blows my mind still. This one is another picture of some fields of apples.
Apples go on forever, too, up there by Wenatchee.
Everywhere.
Washington State, go look at your apple. I bet you it's grown in Washington.
check-
The little
check
sticker
that
says Washington
sticker.
on it. So.
Yep, probably from here. That's my guess. Another thing that Wenatchee kind of has to offer is going up into the mountains. If you notice, this is the city of Wenatchee down here, but they're surrounded by mountains, and you can go skiing. Really nice ski resort up there. Got any cool stories?
That's Ariel right there.
Save
looking
them
her
for later.
shredding.
Oh no, I'm not that good. No, it's really cool though, just that you can do that kind of thing. And then down here, there's just the river cutting the city in half. Super common again for bigger cities in Washington. You'll notice they're all the bigger cities are on water in some form. When Moses Lake has a lake, Wenatchee has a river, Tri-Cities has a river, Seattle on the ocean. So you kind of need water to survive. It's essential. So that's where you build your city. Again, this way cool to me. Snow. Brown. No snow. Just you climb an elevation so quickly that the snow stays up there in those snowy peaks and not down in the city. So talking about water and where you build cities and stuff, Wenatchee again is like right over here. There's another little river that feeds in, but Moses Lake is kind of coming off of here, the Columbia River, but the Columbia River is a really big source of water and power and all these other things in Washington. It also kind of forms the border of the states of Oregon and Washington down here at the bottom. So one of the things they have in the middle of the river is this dam right here. It's the Grand Coulee Dam. We've driven up there before to check it out, go see it. There's a visitor center over here, and you can park, and the water's not coming out here. This is just dry, but sometimes they'll release some of the gates, and they let the water come down these big things, and they do a laser light show. Way wicked cool.
Best water slide in the world.
Yeah, if only you could do that. And the other cool fact about this is that this is a mile across. It's hard to kind of put everything into scale and for reference, but a mile is really far, especially for a dam. Like, that's a really wide dam. That's a lot of pressure that it's dealing with of the water on the other side.
There's a lot more water there than it looks, too. Because, that's
Yes.
a mile across. Like, think about walking a mile. And
Far.
it's all the way, across the river, and they just
Yeah.
dammed up that
Like,
river. It's huge.
There's one track, a school track. There's a second school track, a third. Like, that's so many. So this dam provides power for, again, a lot of the West Coast. The Hoover Dam and the Grand Coulee Dam really are the biggest sources of power. And Washington doesn't only keep it for itself. They ship it out to Oregon and other places through electricity lines and such. It's a big operation, again, with turbines inside of there making it work. This is a picture, again, just not a great quality one that I took out the airplane window. I just looked out. We were flying up to Washington from Las Vegas, and we were crossing the Oregon and Washington border. So this side over here is Oregon. This side is Washington. And if you see all these little patches, these are people's farms. The area isn't flat. You can tell it's hilly, like Moses Lake. And so they can't do circles. They do more square sections. And they're either wheel lines or they just dry farm, because sometimes over there, some crops are able to grow with less water, just the natural amount. Like wheat is a popular one. So this is really cool to me. They also use that river section right there that splits the two states up for other things that I think are interesting. So this one is a grain silo, grain elevator, right?
Elevator, yeah.
Elevator. So they fill these guys up with grain from the fields, like wheat and stuff like that. And they'll fill up those big silos on the sides. And then they'll have a boat kind of come down the river underneath here. And they just spill it out and fill up the boat. And then the boat takes that stuff down the river to the ocean, to the ports of Seattle or Portland or whatever. And
China,
then
maybe.
off to China, yeah. And you can't tell, but this boat is huge. It's so long and full of stuff going somewhere. It's a really cheap way to transport your goods, like a truck would on the highway. Goes a little slower maybe, but does the job quickly, efficiently, and cheap. We like that. Another thing I saw on the river, again, we were driving down there one time to get to Oregon to visit some family, and this is a paper factory. So if you notice all of these big plumes right here, these are steam, not smoke. I thought that they were. Smells super bad, but it's just the steam that's coming off the hot presses of them printing paper. If you kind of notice right here, teachers will notice, that's a big paper company brand on there. And you'll notice too, this factory is right on the river. They suck up water from the river to cool off their machines, and that's what creates the steam.
A lot of times people look at this and be like, oh, look at all that pollution going in the air. Well, there's actually zero pollution going in the air. It's just they needed a way to cool down their printing presses, so they built the factory right on the river, and they just pump water out of the river, cool down their machines, just soaking it with water, and hot water evaporates, right? Steam, and that's how they cool it down.
Way nifty. Another city down there on the bottom part of the state along the river is, well, it's multiple cities. We call it Tri-Cities. What are the three?
Pasco, Kennewick, and
Richland.
Richland.
Right? I am not very good at which one is which on either side of the river here, but there's these cluster of three cities, kind of like Raleigh, Durham. You guys have the triangle, Tri-Cities, the triangle, three. And they're just really big, but again, they're all, like, they're some of the state's biggest cities besides Seattle and things, but they're located on the river because they use the river for so many different things. I think it's way interesting. There's a bridge that goes across the two, so you can travel. There's multiple bridges, probably three-ish. Yep. Another cool thing that's down there is a power plant. What kind is this? A nuclear power plant. This one, though, is in North Carolina. I'm sure you've seen it, been there before, seen something about it in school. But this is Harris Lake in North Carolina. I know I grew up going boating out there and stuff a lot, but that's where you guys get your power from. A lot of it is from the nuclear power plant at Harris Lake. Again, kind of like the paper plant. It sucks the water in, cools down the machines, not smoke, steam.
White smoke is good because it's not smoke.
Yep, steam, good for the environment. On the river, though, in Washington, they have Hanford. So it started out as a nuclear testing facility. That's where the bombs that were dropped in World War II on Japan were made. Fun fact. Yep. Again, your teachers will care more about that than you, but way cool to me. So now, this is an old picture, but now they have a nuclear power plant there, and they just power the city and stuff. But it used to be used for other purposes.
They do a lot of the testing for the nuclear waste, make sure we can control it and harness its energy without being dangerous.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of smart people who live out here and work for the government and make sure that our nuclear energy and nuclear products are safe. And because there are so many people who work at this plant who live over there, there's a high school there, and they're called the Richland Bombers. Haha. I think it's hilarious. Jordan doesn't think it's as funny, but it's such a big...
I hated the Richland Bombers.
Yeah. He played against them in school, and they were good. But I think it's interesting that it's such a part of, like, the town's history and culture that's literally what they named their high school after, was the nuclear power plant,
that's their
the
mascot.
Bombers.
You got the Fuquay-Varanga Bengals.
Yeah.
Or the Richland Bombers. Like, Bombers, that's a cool mascot.
Yeah.
Much as I hate them.
Way cool. Another fun thing about Tri-Cities and the river, what it has to offer is that, obviously, you want to go golfing when you go on vacation, right? Or when you live there. My husband loves to golf, so he wanted to make sure we put this in there.
It's just fun to see, like, how much life can flourish with water access.
Yeah.
When we don't have water, everything's dead, it's brown. But with the water, like, you got the green, you can do anything you want. You got big trees, you can plant any amount of trees you want.
Look at all those trees.
You got grass, you do whatever you want if you have the right water supply.
Yeah, green and trees, man. All you need is water. Another cool thing on the river, this is actually closer to Moses Lake, so backing up a bit, but just talking about recreation and fun things you can do. This is called the Gorge Amphitheater. It's kind of like Walnut Creek or like any of those places you'd go see a concert in Raleigh, but this one is right on the river. Just really pretty views, and they hold tons of huge concerts there every year. But look how unique and interesting that is. I mean, how many miles can you see for? Still blows my mind every time.
Always a fun time.
Okay, everybody, I hope you learned something from those about what life is like out here on the West Coast in Washington and in Las Vegas. And if you have any questions, just write them down, get them to your teachers. We'll get them for Mrs. Stokes, and we'll try to answer as many as we can.
We had a fun time. Hope you did too.
And remember to go watch those videos and learn about the cows eating French fries. I tell you, it's worth it. 2 minutes apiece.